mercy to us. Grateful to have a place to study, to attend, and are a part of this fellowship, Lord. Thankful for those by YouTube. And Father, we just pray tonight that the nuggets would be given to us, that we would be enriched by your word, that the guidance of the Holy Spirit would help us see what you have for us and help us to apply it within our hearts. We might live for you, Lord. That we might surrender to you. And these Psalms, Lord, they are a charge, and you have plans for your people. And I just pray tonight, Lord, that you would continue to guide us and to lead us and to direct. And while we're here, I did feel like the younger children. As I think of who we are, I pray for that group of children that and as there are many distractions to hinder the younger people, we pray for them. We pray that they would be drawn to you, Lord, and desire a relationship. We pray for your guidance. We pray for the work of the Holy Spirit to draw your people to you, Lord. And so we lift up this time to and pray for your blessings for CCG and for what you. So Psalms 139 is a psalm that's speaking the Lord and his perfect knowledge. Amen. It's a song from the chief musician, a psalm of David. It's a psalm that describes God's understanding of man and knowing all things. And so it starts by saying, "O Lord, you have searched me and know me," or "O Lord, you have examined me and know me." We are examined by the Lord. He's watching us. He's looking at us. He understands who we are. He says, "You know my sitting down and my rising up. You understand my thoughts afar off. You comprehend my lying down and are acquainted with all my ways. For there is not a word on my tongue, but behold, Lord, you know it altogether. You have hedged or protected me before and laid your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high, I can't contain it." These 6 verses, they give us that understanding that God knows everything about everything. He definitely knows everything about me, and I'm sure he knows everything about you. As I was reading the psalm, I couldn't help to think of God knowing Adam and Eve when he came to them after they had sinned and ate of the forbidden fruit, and how he asked them what was going on. I'm going to paraphrase it, and they said, asked him, "Why are you naked?" He said, we're naked and need something to clothe ourselves. And he said, "Who told you you're naked?" And God knew all the time. He came down to verify about that, how he knows everything. He knew what they were doing. He knew Joseph would be mistreated. He knew David would be running from Saul. And we're going to get up into a bunch of verses here about David running from Saul and hiding. God knows everything about everything. And he knows what we do. He knew David would sin with Bathsheba. He knew David would kill Uriah, Bathsheba's husband. God knew Paul would be beaten. He knew all about Jesus. God foretold us through the book of John and the revelation of things yet to come. See, God knows everything. There's nothing he doesn't know. God knows all about me. He knows all about you because he knows it all. He knows. "O Lord, you have searched me, examined me, and you know me." Now, in some ways, that's a scary thought, isn't it? God knows everything about you. There's nothing you and I can do that He doesn't know. And He says here, you know when I'm sitting down and when I'm rising up. God already knows you're going to sit or whether you're going to rise. God knows thoughts from afar off. From before I could even think about them, He already knows what's in my mind, what's in my head. He knows the paths I'll take and the lying down I'll take. He knows my ways. I like this, verse 4. And there is not a word in my tongue, but behold, O Lord, you know it all together. He knows what I'm going to speak before I speak it. God knows everything. David says, you know what? Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is high, I cannot contain. In other words, this blows my mind. When you think about what these first speak to us about, it ought to cause you to trip out. It ought to cause you to think, whoa, man, that's powerful. Starting in verse 7, we get what is known as the omnipresence of God. He's everywhere. And then the psalmist says, or David says, where can I go from your spirit? Flee from your presence. If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in hell, behold, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, your hand shall lead me and your right hand shall hold me. God is everywhere. His presence is everywhere. He's felt everywhere. David says, you know, I could ascend to heaven, you're there. I could even make my bed in hell, or in death is another translation. And you're there also. God is everywhere. You can't outrun God. You can't get away from God. Like Jonah, who ran away from God but was not able to. You just can't go far enough, because when you get there, He's there. So David's saying the presence of God is all around us. It's always there. He says, if I say, surely the darkness shall fall on me, even the night shall be light about me. Indeed, the darkness shall not hide from you, but the night shines as the day. The darkness and the light are both alike to you. In other words, when God sees us, night or day, He can still see us. The dark can't hide us. You ever played hide and go seek at night? Hard to find someone, right? If it's dark enough, you could actually stand somewhere and someone will walk right by you because they just can't see you. God can see. The darkness can't hide us or do anything to obscure who we are and what we are, because God sees clearly both in the night as He does in the day. Why? Because they're both alike to Him. He's the creator of them. Verse 13 speaks of and I always have trouble saying this, but I believe it's pronounced omniscience, and His all-knowing. It says, for you, God, form my inward parts. And He's going to talk about here birth, and He uses the pregnancy to explain how deep He knows us. He says, for you, God, form my inward parts. You covered me in my mother's womb. I will praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are your works, and that my soul knows very well. So, of course, God knows from the moment and woman join together and those seeds connect, that there's going to happen, something in that womb is going to happen. And He says that, you know what, God, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made, and marvelous are your works. In other words, we know God is the creator of all life. And He says how wonderful it is to be made. You know, you are you. We often want to be like someone. We often want to mimic another person. I know years ago I would try to imitate and copy different people that I admired in their teaching and try to sound like them and act like them and do like them, and it doesn't work. I have to just be Augie, because there is no other Augie. This is who I am. This is who God created me to be. I can look in the mirror and say, man, I don't like that. But it doesn't change anything. This is the way God. You know what? I'm beautiful and wonderfully made by God. See, God knows us before birth because He's the creator of all flesh. He made us. He made our bodies. He made our bodies to heal themselves in so many ways. The intricacies of God within us are unbelievable when you think about them. Verse 15 says, "My frame was not hidden from you. When I was made in secret, skillfully wrought in the lowest parts of the earth, your eyes saw my substance." That word substance means embryo. Your eyes saw it from the very beginning. God knew. Being yet unformed, and in your book they were all written, the days fashioned for me, when as yet they were none of them. It's like God had a book with the directions about everything that was going to take place on every single day of the pregnancy. That's how you could read that. And every single day there was things that were going to take place as the embryo was developing, and from the moment of that conception, life was there and God saw it. You could have this a right to life study right here. Everything God saw, everything that the psalmist knew about who he was and how God fashioned him and made him. And he says, you know what? The days fashioned for me as yet when they were none of them. Abortion shortens what God is trying to do in every pregnancy. That's why it's so wrong. Because God is still working even within the pregnancy of each child that is being developed. Every day it's a process. And when abortion happens, it shortens that process or stops that process. Now, you know, I don't like getting down on people that have abortion because I know it's a painful thing. It's impossible thing to go through and experience, and we're always glad because we want to bring in God that, you know, if it has been done, there's also forgiveness from God. There's also the mercy of God that comes and cleanses those mistakes, we might call them. Just like He cleansed my mistake from heroin or cocaine, you know. Really, what we do in our own personal lives and the actions we do, they're all forgivable by God. There's none really greater. He just looks for us to say, you know what, admit your and let's move on. And so many people are in bondage today because they can't forgive themselves from something they did 20, 30, 40 years ago. No. God doesn't want to keep us in bondage. He wants us to know that there's freedom. And then in verse 17 he says, "How precious also are your thoughts to me. Oh God, how great is the sum of them." In other words, God is always thinking about me. He's always thinking about you. Notice it. I love this verse. It's one of the first verses that I remember as a brand new Christian reading and hearing, and I actually thought about it. He said, if I should count them, okay, so back to 17, how precious also are your thoughts, God's thoughts of me, of you, okay? Keep that in mind for a minute. And then he says, oh God, how great is the sum of them? How many are there? Verse 18, if I should count them, they would be number than the sand. When I awake, I am still with you. So a couple of things here. God's thought about us is greater than the numbers of the grain of sand. I can't quote it to you, but it's something like 10 to the 18 power. And it's a ridiculous number. An estimated number. They don't know. No one went around counting the grains of sand in the world. But they estimated by a spoonful that they counted, multiplied by distance and, you know, all this stuff. And then how do they know how much is under the sea? It's like a ridiculous number, this number of the grains of sand. And so, in other words, God is always thinking about you and I, always. And when I think of that, I think, here it is. God is thinking, and then the psalmist, David says, when I awake, I am still with you. In other words, even when I'm sleeping, God is thinking of me. He has thoughts of me. I remember the first time I applied this verse into my life. It's going to sound foolish to you. I was in in California, we call stores drugstores, where you buy beer and cupcakes and whatever, like a 7-Eleven kind of thing. We call them drugstores. And I remember being in there, and I remember looking at stuff. I'm a candy freak. And I saw a look in a big hunk. And this verse came to mind. I got more thoughts about you than you can ever imagine. I said, God, you have so many thoughts. I know you will. And I don't remember if you said, or look, or if I just said big hunk. And I thought, you got to have a thought about which candy I eat. Today I would say, God would say, don't grab either one of them. They're no good for you. But that's how simple-minded I was. I believe God had thoughts for me concerning me. And He thinks about you and I all the time. Verse 19, oh, that you would slay the wicked, O God, depart from me. Therefore, you bloodthirsty men, for they speak against you wickedly, turns into the enemies of God. He says, your enemies take your name in vain. Do not hate them, you. Those who rise up against you, I hate them with perfect hatred or mature hatred. I count them as enemies. So, of course, we are offended when people talk about God and belittle God and make God out to be foolish. And unfortunately, sometimes we're no help. Christians can be no help. That's why when you see them on television, they always get somebody who's simple-minded, who doesn't have any real working knowledge of God. They always get the wacko on TV. You seldom see them get a mature Christian who knows what they're talking about. They always have to get somebody radical. And he says, I hate them with perfect hatred. I count them my enemies. And then verse 23, search me, examine me, O God, and know my heart. Try me or prove and know my anxieties, know my thoughts, and see if there's any wicked way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. So verse 23, it's a great verse. It's a great verse for us who might not be doing the right thing, or maybe we don't even know we're doing the right thing. It's a verse that it says to me, Lord, you search what's inside of me, because I don't know my heart. But God does. And He says, and know my heart. Prove me, test me. Show me who I am. And know my thoughts. Know my anxieties. On with me. God, you see if there's something inside of me deep down that's to manifest itself and maybe cause hurt or pain. And He says, show me this, if there's anything wicked within me, and lead me in the way everlasting. Put me back on the right path. Deceive ourselves into thinking stuff. Go astray because we start believing something that's not true. People can deceive us. We can deceive ourselves. I was curious. There's 32 times in the Bible the word deceives. And it talks about deceive himself or be deceived. I was thinking about so he could get what he wanted. Genesis 29:25 is, so it came to pass in the morning, when they got married, he think he's marrying Rachel. He said, and it came to pass in the morning, Rachel's sister. And he said to Laban, what is it you have done to me? Was it not for Rachel that I served you? And you could put those 7 years. Why then have you deceived me? Because men will deceive us. Men will use us to get. Timothy chapter 3 verse 13. But evil men are deceiving and being deceived. So evil men, he says, will grow worse and worse, deceiving and being deceived. Because there are deceitful people out there. The devil is the deceiver. And if we're not careful, we can deceive ourselves into thinking all kinds of things that God never said or desired for us. People follow their own passion. That's why I think David said, you know what, search me, O God, because there's stuff going on me I don't even know. It's important for us from time to time to ask God to search our hearts, search our thoughts, see what's going inside of us, because there's things inside of us I don't think we know often. It's like he was saying, put me back on the right road. Straighten out my brains because I'm going the wrong way. I actually wrote here, once in a while my GPS goes off track. You ever done that? You would think you were going somewhere and your GPS was taking you the wrong way? You made a turn and it has to recalibrate and you're trying to figure out where you're at and it keeps telling you to turn left and get back around. You're trying to figure out what's... Sometimes our GPS gets off track. It's like, God, fix this. Help me get back where I'm supposed to be. So I think it's good to pray, search me, O God, and know my heart. And see if there's any wicked way in me. Why? Because I have no idea what's in me sometimes. And lead me in the way everlasting. Psalms 141 is a prayer for deliverance. Your title might say from evil men. David was running from Saul. David had many enemies as he was even starting with the... Deliver me, O Lord, from evil men. Protect me from violent men who plan evil things in their hearts. They continually gather together for war. And so we know David was a man of war. That's why he couldn't build the temple. He had too much blood on his hands. And like I said, he lived in a period of war. His life was surrounded with battle all the time. Philistines and nations. You all know he fought against Saul. Saul was persecuting, chasing him, trying to get even with him. Saul believed David was trying to overtake him when David wasn't. He fought against his own family. Absalom betrayed him. Some of his leaders came against him. David was like always fighting. He always had enemies within and without. Even within his own family, he had his enemy, his own sons. Verse 3 says they sharpen their tongues, okay? So they're coming after him. They sharpen their tongues like a serpent. The idea was that there are people out there who, because in verse 2 he says, who plan evil things in their hearts. They want to get David, he says. And sometimes they're like serpents, he says, who have poison in their app. Meaning, the word app, I was looking it up because I wasn't sure what it was. And it means they coil themselves to strike. And when you see a snake, that's what it does. And it's ready to strike. And he says, there are people out there who desire to do things to him. And I believe us, they're like snakes and they're ready to strike. They're ready to call up and just attack, he says. And it's under their lips. They're ready to say something. Something that can damage us. Why? Because words do hurt. People say they don't. We grew up, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. It's not true, it's a lie. How many of you have been hurt by words? Words can cause damage. And he says, Selah. He actually says, I want you to stop here and ponder this for a minute. Stop and think about this. Verse 4, he says, keep me, O Lord, from the hands of the wicked. Preserve me from violent men who have purposed to make my steps stumble. They want him to fall. The proud have hidden a snare for me, or trap and cord. They have spread a net by the wayside. They have set traps for me. It's like they were hunting an animal. They were trying to get him and catch him. My God, hear the voice of my supplication. O Lord, Father, hear my prayer. They're coming after me, and I need your help. And he says, hear my prayer, God. Verse 7, O God, the Lord. The actual translation is, O Lord, the Lord. And for us, it wouldn't make sense. But the first word means Yahweh. Often in the scripture, the word Lord means Yahweh, Jehovah, Creator, the self-existing. The second Lord means Adonai. It's from the word Adam. It means master or owner. And he says, O Lord, the Lord, O Yahweh, the Adonai, the master, the owner, the strength of my salvation. You have covered my head in the day of battle. Do not grant, O Lord, the desires of the wicked. Do not further their wicked scheme, lest they be exalted. Don't allow them to succeed. Prayer for us when we're being attacked at work and anywhere. Don't let them succeed. You stop them. Verse 9, as for the head of those who surround me, let the evil of their lips cover them. If they speak in falsehood, turn it back on them. Turn it back on them. This was a hard lesson for me to learn, but I learned it. I learned it as a kid. It didn't take you to get saved, but I have learned when there are battles and people talk bad about me, I don't know how many times he leaves the battles to the Lord. Pastor Steve, my pastor, used to say, let the Lord fight your battles. Don't fight them. And you know, it's hard to not want to stand up for yourself and deny accusations. It really is. But if I want to fight those battles, God will let me. But turning things around back on the people that do. Remember Haman with Mordecai in the book of Esther? Remember what Haman did by trying to trap Mordecai? You all know the story. And he built these gallows because he planned on hanging Mordecai. But it all turned backwards. And what happened to Haman? He got hung in the very gallows he built to hang Mordecai. See, sometimes, I shouldn't even say sometimes, most of the time, we're just trying to fight our own. Let them be cast into the fire, into deep pits, that they not again. Let not a slander be established in the earth. Let evil hunt the violent man to overthrow him. David's, what he's saying basically is, God, you pay them back and let them go after themselves. Let them inflict themselves with all that they're trying to do. And then verse 12, I know that for the poor. I know. I like that. I know. Surely the righteous shall give thanks to your, and the upright shall dwell in your presence. You know, God does take care of his people. And often when we know that the Lord will be there for us and that he will stay faithful to him, even if you're just hanging on, Even if you're just hanging on and you're thinking, I can't go no more. This is just over. You know, God will keep care of us. Often that's all we have. We can't trust our emotions. We can't trust what people say. We have to trust God. He says, chapter 141, my title says, Prayer for Safekeeping from Wickedness. Another Psalm of David. Lord, I cried out to you. Again, I'm praying to you. I'm calling out to you. Make haste to me. Give ear to my voice when I cry out to you. Lord, hear me when I call. And then he says, and hurry up. You ever done that? God, hurry up. I can't take this anymore. Can man hurry God? No. We do try. We can't hurry the Lord. He is on His time, not ours. We know this. Remember when Lazarus died? Jesus is in another area, and Lazarus is dead, and they need to hurry. Mary sends him, and Jesus says, "Okay, well, there in these more days." Pronounced dead. And when they did that, remember when he showed up, what happened? Remember what Martha did? Martha said, Lord, where were you? If you would have been here, for his own time. It drives me crazy that the Lord doesn't hurry up sometimes. But He does them. He does it and no one can. Everything. And the next verse after what Martha said, she said, even now I know you can raise them. Her brother was dead, that the Lord could still raise them up. David says, Lord, I cry out to you. Make haste to me. Give my ear to my voice, and I cry out to you. Let my prayer for you. Let my prayer be set before you. Presented before you. Notice this. Before you as incense. The lifting up my hands as the evening sacrifice. In other words, my prayer, Lord, see them as a form of worship and dedication. Almost like a religious act. When I pray, Lord, see this as me presenting as a religious act, as my worship and my dedication to you. And you know, God listens to every prayer. Every one. His ear is not so short He cannot hear. Think about that for a day. 7 billion people on the earth, somewhere in that area. And how many pray? Let's just say you're still looking at, what is that, 2.5 billion, a little bit more, people praying to the Lord. And He hears everyone, night and day, because God don't sleep. We sleep. And yet He's there. In Revelation chapter 8, verse 3 and 4, we're told this, then another angel, having a golden censer, came and stood at the altar. He was given much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all the saints. Notice that. With the prayer of all the saints. What did David said? Let my prayer be set for you as incense. That's what he said. In Revelation, John's writing, he says, talking about the golden censer, and he says, let it be offered to you with the prayers of the saints upon the golden altar which was before the throne, and the smoke of the incense, prayers of the saint, ascended before God from the angel's hand. Ascended before God. The prayers went up as an offering, as an aroma to God. I like that. I like that everything I've ever cried out to God or spoke to God about and talked to God about, even though He heard of them, they're still going to be offered again one day with the saints as an incense to God. Verse 3 says, set guard, O Lord, over my mouth. Keep watch over the door of my lip. Highlight that one. That is a very good verse to highlight. Good prayer. Lord, keep me from speaking too much and hurting or sinning. Put a guard. A guard here means or maybe your translation says a watch. It means like a soldier, a person who is actually standing guard. And it says, put a guard, O Lord, over my mouth. Let there be someone there who, when I'm about to speak, knows what I'm about to say, and that they will put a door on my something foolish. I don't know where my guard's been, because I've said too many foolish things. Too many foolish things. It would be nice to have someone stop me before I utter things that I have no business saying. Bob Davis said this, don't let my life contradict each other. The things I say ought to be true from my heart. David says, put a guard over my mouth. Keep watch over the doors of my lips. Do not incline my heart to do evil things, to practice wicked works with men who work iniquity, and do not let me eat of their delicacies. In other words, God's not saying we shouldn't ever be a part of an unbeliever's life or a wicked person, but what He's saying is we're not to hang around with them. And we do that. You know, the verse that always comes to mind is, be not unequally yoked. It talks about a yoke between a believer and non-believer. But I've believed it's to everything in the Christian life. I have no business dealings with a non-believer if I'm a believer. Why? Because as a believer, the Holy Spirit in me will keep me honest. But as a non-believer, it's okay to compromise. It's okay not to pay taxes. We can do this. And when you're unequally yoked, of the world, the other one is of God. So to be unequally yoked often causes trouble. It'll start off good. There'll be a nice wedding and a honeymoon. But once that's over, two different views are going to take in place. And so when I see these, and he says, do not incline my heart to do evil things, to practice wicked works, when men who work iniquity, and do not let me eat their delicacy. It's like David saying, God, keep me pure, keep me honest, keep me faithful. Don't let me get involved with people I have no business being involved with. It's good advice. Let the righteous strike me. Here's an interesting verse. Let the righteous strike be a kindness. Okay, when I'm speaking things I shouldn't say, he said, let the righteous, let the believer, let my brother, let my sister strike me. It shall be a kindness, and let him rebuke me. It shall be an excellent oil, as excellent oil. Let my head not refuse, for still my prayer is against the deeds of the wicked. You know, open rebuke is better than secret love, the Bible tells us. We are to be faithful to our brothers and sisters and call out their unholy practices or sayings. Proverbs 27:6 says to us, faithful are the wounds of a friend when they speak truth to us. They're faithful to point out the things that we might have said. But the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. They flatter us with not for our good. So we are to point out those things to each other when we love people. We point them out because we love them. But the proper way, Galatians 6:1 says, "Brethren, if a man is overtaken in a trespass, you who are spiritual," he says, "restore such a one in a spiritualness, considering yourself, lest you also be tempted." So, if I see something in someone, I'm not to just go out and rebuke them and point my finger. Says Galatians, he says, Paul writes and says, listen, if you find someone who's doing wrong, be gentle. Kindness. Why? Because you have to consider yourself unless you're tempted. Proverbs 15:1, one of my favorite verses. Proverbs 15:1, a soft answer turns away wrath, but harsh words stir up anger. Verse 2, the tongue of the wise use knowledge rightly, but the mouth of fools pours forth foolishness. I like that. First, when I speak with someone and they accuse me of something or are harsh with me, it's the first thing, don't do that back. Use a soft tone, and a soft answer will turn away wrath. You can actually calm a person down more by speaking gently. Calm down. Right? And the tongue of the wise uses knowledge rightly. We know how to speak what we should. He says their tongues are overthrown by the sides of the cliff, and they hear my words, for they are sweet. Our bones are scattered at the mouth of the grave, and when one plows and breaks up the earth, what? This is a very difficult passage. I read as many commentaries and teachings on it as I could, and I'm going to tell you something. It's very puzzling what they're trying to say. Everybody has a different view, and it left me even more confused. So let's just go to verse 8, because I can't tell you. Verse 8, but my eyes are upon you, O Lord, O God the Lord. In you I take refuge. You're my hiding place, God. Do not leave my souls destitute. Lord, my life might be twisted up. I might not have no hope. But you know what? I need to keep my eyes on you. That's what he's saying. I need to keep my eyes on you. Keep me from the snares that the wicked have laid up for me, and from the traps of the workers of iniquity. Let the wicked fall into their own nets, while I escape safely. Let them fall in their own nets, but I'll keep my eyes on you because I'm going to be safe in you. It's a good word. When everything else is happening, accusing us, and things are falling apart, and what people are saying stuff, listen. He'll keep us safe. Amen. Father, we do thank you.